in Intermountain Health at in Utah, and I'm going to let you go ahead with your 5 minutes.
Great, thank you, Chrissy. So my topic is LOX, which stands for Liquid Oxygen System. How many of you actually have a backup system? Now, next slide. So the format I'm going to use is what we call an SBAR, Situation, Background, Assessment, and Recommendation. So what happened was back in April of this year, there was a report at 2 New York City hospitals. Their oxygen delivery system was interrupted, resulting in having to relocate 24 of their ventilator patients. Next slide. So the background of it is that when we had, as we all experienced, surge of COVID-19 patients that are being put on ventilator support, one of the main gases they use is oxygen, not only for ventilator patients, but non-ventilator patients throughout your other units in the hospital. At that time, Intermountain as a system put a pause on elective surgeries. So currently, right now, we are conducting elective surgeries as well as emergent type cases. So there is much more of a demand for oxygen in itself. Next slide. So what is LOX? We have, most of your hospitals have a bulk storage system. That is the usual method, as you can see here in the lower right-hand corner. The tank to the left is oxygen in its liquid state. And so what happens is that when there's a demand through 50 psi throughout your med gas system, this liquid oxygen is funneled into these vaporizer fins that you see off to the right. You will see some icing, which is normal. And so what happens is these fins absorb the ambient air. It then transfers the heat to where it transfers the state of the liquid oxygen into a gas. Next slide. So again, you'll notice ice accumulation on the left. When there is a higher demand for oxygen, whether it's through your normal oxygen delivery system or on patients that are using high flow or ventilators, you're going to have icing of the vaporizer fins, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner. And what will happen is that there is less of a conversion, and it'll put a strain on the demand of the oxygen throughout your hospital system. So the assessment is that we noticed that our patients that were on ventilators, they were requiring a higher FiO2, which is your fraction of inspired oxygen. As we know, the air in the atmosphere is comprised of 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, and then the other 1% are other gases. So what happens is that we found out through our facilities, meaning we had our clinical operations director, our ICU manager, plant operations, our RT folks, and emergency management brainstorm and actually did an assessment of how much oxygen we are actually using, even though we did not have any elective cases going on in the OR. And so we found out that if our, go back please, if we go back to our de-icing of our vaporizer fins, it could take up to 3 hours. Next slide. Part of the recommendation, again, was we did conduct an assessment of our capacity and our capability. Ongoing is that our plant operations folks does a routine eyes-on assessment of how much icing is taking place, even down here in the southwest corner of Utah. We are in our summer months, and even when it's 109, 110 degrees outside, you are still going to have icing over your LOX system. We did develop a de-icing strategy, and we also established a trigger point to commence the icing. And if it's possible, to develop a backup LOX system. Next slide. So what we did is that we actually worked with Praxair, and we came up and they supplied us with a backup system, as you can see in the lower right-hand corner. This will be utilized when we reach that trigger point on our primary LOX system to start that de-icing program. Next slide. Next slide. And open for any questions.
Thank you.
I think I hit it on time.
You did. You hit it right on time. Actually, you were 30 seconds ahead. Nice work. You guys are all doing great.
I'm going to carry that over to my next webinar.
So we do have a question. Is that LOX system inoperable while you're de-icing?
So great
And then
question, Keith.
how
So
much
the
extra
primary,
O2 did your hospital use? There's two questions, so
yeah,
you can answer
okay.
both of
So the
those.
first one question, the first one, Keith, is that if our primary system, as you saw in the picture, we started to have the de-ice, that secondary Praxair system that's on the flatbed trailer, that switches over. And so we're able to, we know within the 3-hour time period to de-ice our primary, we have enough capacity in that secondary tank to fulfill the needs of the demand for the hospital. Going back to Jacob, how much extra oxygen did your hospital use? You know, that's a moving target. We were not able to quantify it because the only time you're able to quantify it is when Praxair comes and refills your tank during those peak moments. We have not reached our actual peak here at Dixie Regional Medical Center. We are getting close. And the thing that we're looking at is we are now conducting what we call tier 1 type of surgeries, elective surgeries, in addition to having our COVID patients on ventilators as well as high flow oxygen.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing your lessons learned.